Hello and welcome to Health Matters on Channels Television. Thanks for staying with us. I am Mary Alale Yusuf. Now, every child has a problem with study and homework sometime in their life, in his or her life. It becomes a concern, however, if the difficulty seems to go on indefinitely. It could just be a learning disability, an umbrella term for a range of learning problems which include difficulties with reading, writing, mathematics, and speaking, among other things. The most common of these conditions, dyslexia, according to Dyslexia International, affects about 1 in 10 people worldwide to some degree. Experts say learning disabilities are not a measure of intelligence or motivation. With me from the Department of Pediatrics in Lagos University Teaching Hospital is Dr. Zainab Akere. Also participating in the discussion is Chairman of the Dyslexia Foundation and Brain Center, Ben Aripo. You are welcome to the show.
Thank you. Very much.
Now, the natural thing to people say when a child is not getting his milestones, is not hitting the A's in school, is that he's a dull person. He has no sense. So what's the difference between that and dyslexia or, you know, the other problems, dyscalculia and co, learning disabilities in general?
Okay. Well, there's an umbrella term for neurodevelopmental disorders or neurodevelopmental impairments. That is a broad range of kinds of disabilities, and some of them might affect intellect, can affect motor, that's trying to walk, talk, cognition, trying to use your hands. But dyslexia, or now it's under a bigger umbrella word called specific learning disability. It's the impairment in trying to read, in reading, that's for dyslexia, but your intellect, your intelligence is preserved.
Okay.
So you don't have, and your other developmental, your other domains are preserved. Your motor, you can work, you can communicate, your social interactions with people, they are all preserved, but you have a problem reading, you have a problem articulating words.
My problem is, or rather my question is, where is the disconnect between that nicely preserved intellect and that nicely preserved brain and the speech? What's missing in between?
Well, the speech, you know, the brain is a neural network of, it's involved in so many things, speech, language. There are several aspects of the brain that are involved in several things. There's even a particular part of the brain that it has to do with expressive speech. There's another one, receptive. So it depends on the particular part of the brain that is impaired. That is how it will present externally. So you can have a very fine child, you might not even know anything is wrong with child, but will have a speech delay. So you can't say because the child has a speech delay, the child is dull or the child is mentally retarded. Or that aspect of the brain is not just as developed as his peers. So you have to just do so much work on that part.
Incidentally, Mr. Aripo has a son who he discovered has dyslexia, right?
Yes.
What were the determining signs for you?
Just as you said, for me, he was absolutely brilliant and intelligent, smart in every aspect of the word. However, he wasn't able to read, write, spell, or comprehend. And he had attention deficit disorder. And I didn't know. As always is the case, most men would, of course, delegate the function of bringing up the children and supervising their education to their wives or to caregivers. So it was when my wife traveled and I had to then support him to revise his work to go back to school the next week. And I realized that despite his intelligence, sociable, he's an A-type personality, you know. Outgoing, sociable, nice guy, speaks well. But now let's read. The books he brought back from school, he couldn't read them. And so I said, okay, let's just practice something. I said, spell house. And he goes, K. Oh, what did I do? I slapped him, of course. At that time, that's the best I knew. And then I said, no, watch my lips. I'm saying house. I said, oh, M.
Oh, wow.
Then I realized there was a bigger problem.
Devastated.
Absolutely, I was. And at that point, I was teaching sociology and psychology in a university. So imagine a university teacher who's a child can. Oh my God. Of course, the next thing I do is take him to school the next Monday and shouted at the teachers and everything, and they gave me a bigger dossier of what he couldn't do.
But before we even go further into this, I don't understand how you were not informed before that time that this is the problem. Isn't that what teachers are supposed to do?
Up to 2015, no one who was diagnosed with dyslexia had that diagnosis in Nigeria. Up to 2015.
So your son was not diagnosed in Nigeria?
No, my son was not diagnosed in Nigeria. After going around for 2 years, I then realized that I couldn't find a solution to what was wrong with him. Nobody knew what was wrong with him. They took me to opticians, I got glasses, I got hearing aids, I got everything, speech therapy. I did every intervention that I was recommended.
Okay, let me ask Dr. Akere, what are the risk factors of somebody getting dyslexia or getting any of the other learning disabilities?
Well,
like inability to add up.
Okay, those are the specific learning disabilities. Well, there are no risk factors per se. There's no really known cause and effect. But from research and studies, they've said it has been linked to genetics.
Okay.
Some genetics, like if it runs in the family, there are some abnormalities in some genes responsible for phonemic expression, and so those are that's the only etiology we've been able to identify, and it has some genetic basics.
So in other words, it can pop up anytime, whether you expect it or not, in a child of yours.
Well, like with me saying it has some genetic basis, if you have an uncle or somebody in the family that you know, unfortunately, we don't really know these things in our environment.
People hide these
things.
Yes,
or even term it under something else. They might have just labeled the uncle not smart enough or not good enough, or didn't just want to go to school or something. So if that was identified, you can expect it, not really expect, but you can just watch out for it. And once a child goes to school and you see, my child is not doing as you know, we are now expectant, you're now looking out for it. For him, he wasn't looking out for it. It just happened, and it was. So when you're looking at intervention, you can act as early as possible, because that is the hallmark of treatment, early intervention.
Okay,
I just want to talk about the second risk factor. The first one is genetic. The second one is traumatic brain injury.
Okay,
When the brain is traumatically injured. And what are the simple things?
A parent can more easily understand that.
Yeah. When you hit your child on the head, teachers beat on the head.
Just hit?
Yes.
Not an accident?
That's another one.
Yes,
even an
accident.
Brain
trauma.
Where is the place we beat our children? In school and at home. Give them a knock on the head. That could lead to the traumatic brain injury. Or a child is sleeping and suddenly something happens, you're banging on his door. He wakes up under his tattoo. That in itself could lead to a brain injury at that point.
It could now manifest as a learning disability.
Yes,
in my own son's case, he was coming, when he was 4, he was coming across to meet his mom who was seeing off a friend and was knocked by a bike.
Okay.
And we treated a surface wound on his forehead, but didn't realize that his brain had been damaged.
Well, damaged is a strong word.
Exactly. It's a brain damage because the brain got traumatically hit. The trauma of the brain receives a traumatic hit, and then the response in that particular surface, that particular part of the brain, goes into shock. I mean, we've also dealt in our centers, we've dealt with neonatal shock as well.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say, that aside from genetics, because, you know, people classify it into different, there's the primary, secondary causes.
That's right.
It's
a secondary cause now.
Then during fetal period, you could, like the neonatal, during the fetal,
during the
birth process in utero, so there could be some abnormalities in the brain, and so that could also result.
But do you diagnose this clinically?
Well, diagnosis is not like you take a history. Normally, diagnosis is usually taking a history, doing a physical examination. So from the history, you get a parent saying, "My son can't read. He can't join sounds together in a word." So, for instance, there's cat. He can't say, he doesn't know that cat is to form cat. You get, or he can't even differentiate. Maybe sometimes he can be lucky, he can say cat, but he can't differentiate it with bats, with mats. everything just looks the same because you can't
At this
separate.
point, Mr. Arikwa, I need to ask you,
Yeah.
how did you approach this problem?
Well, as a concerned parent, I went everywhere in Nigeria to look for a solution for my son. Of course, the first thing you do is change his school, which most parents do. You change your school and say the school is not good enough and get the best lesson teacher, as the case may be. Of course, all that failed. After 2 years of going around until he was 11, I didn't find a solution. So I decided, okay, let me get outside of Nigeria. We went to the US and then we found something called brain training. Never heard of brain training before. I never knew that the brain could be trained. He was diagnosed there. When they did an assessment for the brain at that place, we were told, oh, that was the first time I heard dyslexia. He was dyslexic. He's dyslexic. I said, what's that? They told me he had weak cognitive skills. What's that? Although he was 11, he was operating at the age of 5. Why? These were my questions. So what is he supposed to do? Oh, 9 months brain exercises right here in the States.
Just 9 months?
9 months. And I came on a holiday. How could I leave him there for 9 months? So, well, one thing led into another. I bought the franchise, brought it to Nigeria, went to train with my family, my wife and 2 other people, came back and put him on the same program for 9 months.
You put him on the program yourself?
Yes, in Nigeria.
How safe is this?
Well, treatment for dyslexia is not medical per se.
Okay.
It's not strictly medical. So it's a collaboration, it's a multidisciplinary approach kind of treatment. So for the programming, it has to do with maybe occupational brain training, like you said. So there's occupational therapy, there's this role of the psychologist, then the child psychiatry. So it's a multidisciplinary approach. So
okay, many people can come together to handle this thing.
So it's not that it has to be done in the hospital. Even abroad, interventions are done in schools.
Schools again?
Yes.
How did that work for you?
Well, first, I changed his school.
No, not the school thing.
Okay.
The 9-month course.
Oh, because, I mean, when I started, I was out of excitement. I started to train him. He would take advantage of me, of course. So I passed him on to the 2 other people who went to train. And, of course, I didn't see any result in the first 4 months. And I was always calling the state, hey, guys, this thing is not working. What's going on? They said, how long? I said, 4 months. I said, keep going. All they were telling me was keep going. On the 5th month, the first time I saw was I met him watching a Yoruba movie. He doesn't speak Yoruba. What are you doing? He said, I'm watching a movie. Can't you see? Why are you watching a Yoruba movie and you don't speak Yoruba? He said, I'm reading the subtitles.
He was reading the subtitles.
That's what I said. You reading. Okay,
After 5 months of training.
Absolutely. He read the subtitles for me. And I said, okay, in that case, when we get for morning devotion tomorrow, you're going to read the Bible verse. He said, no problem. And we got to morning devotion. He read it.
And you read it.
I was shocked.
This brain
I was
training.
excited and telling the driver the story. The driver said, oh, guy, you never see anything, you know. The man reads every billboard he sees on the way. He's suddenly like a man whose eyes are open.
Something
He was blind.
just opened up.
Absolutely.
Doctor, what is this? Is this brain training, did it repair his brain? What did it do?
Well, from my own understanding, I think it just allowed the brain to, will I say, to adapt to the disorder that the child had. It provided, it like rerouted the brain.
The signals.
Yes, for easy reading and comprehension of words.
Okay,
Point
can we now say that
Point
he
of
doesn't?
correction.
Okay, go ahead.
From our point of view, the program rewires the brain. The brain can be rewired. Neuroplasticity says the brain can be rewired.
But that's the same thing. Taking it through other routes.
No. Regenerating the neurons.
Oh.
The neurons get regenerated as a result of these exercises. Remember, the brain is made up of neurons, gray matter, and water. All right. So when the brain is going through the exercises, the neurons that are, the cells that are dead, they begin to fall off, and new ones are regenerated through these exercises. Those new ones are the ones that allow for those connectors and for the person to now make a connection with the left and right side of the brain.
Okay,
and then
we have to take a break at this point. We'll come back and continue all this. Please stay with us. We are coming in a short while.